A very beautiful good morning to you and to all your lovely Nile TV viewers.
Good morning, Mr. Sheta. And of course, the meeting between President Sisi and his Singaporean counterpart was a very significant meeting. Would you please elaborate on the importance of Egyptian-Singaporean relations and specifically trade and investment relations?
Well, actually, I think Egypt can learn a lot from Singapore. First of all, of course, the visit of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi to Singapore in 2015 was the first visit ever for an Egyptian president to Singapore. And also, Egypt was one of the first countries in the Middle East, or actually worldwide, to acknowledge the independence of Singapore in 1959, if I'm not mistaken. So actually, and even the Singaporean president, he talked about this issue, and he was very proud and was very happy to visit Egypt. So back to your question, what we can learn from what Singapore has reached during such a very short period of time. You know, Singapore used to be a developing country, actually, and they were able to transform their nation from a into an industrial country in just during just one generation. So during this time from 1959,
it was one of the 7 fast developing nations in the Far East.
Yes, and this is why it's also called one of the so-called tiger nations.
Right.
And actually, you know, the name Singapore itself means the city of lions. So this was probably very inspirational for the Singaporean leaders and also for the Singaporean people to be able to transform their country only during a very short period from 1959 till 1990 into a industrial nation. So and also the location of Singapore between Malaysia and Indonesia actually makes them located at one of the most important trade routes between Asia and Europe. And actually, this is what we can learn from. This is the point where we can learn from them how to utilize and make the best out of the Suez Canal corridor as well, because there are lots of similarities between the location of the Suez Canal corridor as well as the location of Singapore in general.
Well, after the meeting, in the press conference, the President said that we are hoping to benefit from the educational experience in Singapore. How do you see the education in Singapore, and how can we benefit from their expertise?
Well, actually, the educational system in Singapore is actually very smart. As you know, there are lots of ethnic groups in Singapore. We have the Chinese people, who make approximately 70% of the people. We have the Indonesian group. We have the Malayan group as well. And so there was, and we have, of course, many different religious groups in Singapore, as well as other Buddhist groups as well. So, for example, in the schools, in the canteens of the schools, they have created something called halal food and halal dishes, actually. So, for example, the dishes which the Muslim students or the Muslim pupils actually use, it's only for them, and it's only for halal food, for example. By this, they have created a very, very good coexistence between the different religious groups, and this is, of course, has reflected in a very positive way on the educational level, which after that reflected also, of course, in the economical development they had in the country. So I think we can benefit, especially in terms of coexistence between the different ethnic groups, between the different religious groups, and also between the different social levels, actually, inside one community. So I hope we really benefit from that as well. And as the Singaporean president said, he will try to give Egypt as much as possible help, as much as possible help and advice in order to develop the different sectors in Egypt as well.
Right. As you've just mentioned, sir, that Singapore was one of the very fast developing countries in Asia. How do you think Egypt can benefit from their experience in that fast developing pace?
Well, it's very easy actually. If you look at the size of Singapore, for example, it's only like 710 square kilometers, for example. This is actually it's maybe the size of one of the governorates here in Egypt, and at the same time their gross domestic product is about their GDP is about 400 billion US dollars. So we really have to look into how they were able to create such a huge GDP, although they're only like maybe I think 7 million people, the population, and the size of the country is also very small. So definitely they made the best out of the best use out of the small areas that they have. By the way, they're even trying to develop the size of the country by enlarging the size of Singapore for another 100 square kilometers till 2030 actually. So by this they will gain more land for the agriculture sector as well as for the industrial sector. Maybe this is something we also should be taken into consideration, which could be useful for some parts of northern Egypt actually, where we could enlarge the area for agriculture land as well. But the most important thing is, of course, they are very smart in trading, in the trading sector. I think we have lots of potential with the new Suez Canal corridor. If we are very smart in using it, we can make it as successful as Jabal Ali, for example, in the United Arab Emirates. And I think we should really try to send some experts from Egypt, and maybe also some foreign experts. I think Egypt is in the phase where we need foreign expertise. If we look at Dubai, for example. All the development which Dubai and the United Arab Emirates have reached during the past 10 years only was due to the fact that they imported the expertise from outside the UAE. So it's nothing wrong to import expertise from outside the country. It's nothing shameful actually. And the problem is here in Egypt, they always claim to say, well, you know, Egypt has some special circumstances. This is not true. There are certain standards for economical development of any nation, and I think we should do that, and we should get the best experts in each sector, and we get them here. We pay them lots of money, but at the end of the day, this will return to Egypt even more money, and we'll be able to make a know-how transfer to the thousands of young people, especially after the very successful youth conference we had in Sharm el-Sheikh a couple of days ago. I think it's about time that we really get experts, and even foreign experts, to educate our youth and give them some expertise, because we need to think out of the box. And one of the things which I remember from this youth conference is actually one of the gentlemen sitting in one of the panel discussions asked President al-Sisi to have another a presidential development program for the age bracket 30 to 40. And I think this is a very smart demand actually, because
the middle age or the mid-career.
Not only the mid-career, because the thing is, you know, the age bracket 20 to 30, this means that these people just graduated from university, so they don't have actually any work experience. But if you look at the age bracket from 30 to 40, most of them have already at least 5 to 10 to 15 years of experience, and preferably those who had their experience outside Egypt, because we need to attract all those Egyptian people living outside Egypt, who live in the United States of America or in Europe or in China or in Egypt, whatever, and get their expertise, and because they know how those industrial nation really reach what they have, and probably some of them are very successful there as well. So we need to get them back to Egypt to make use out of their expertise and their success actually.
Well, talking about the youth conference and as well of course, the meeting of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi with President Tony Tan, well, another issue which was discussed was small and medium enterprises or investment, the SMEs.
Yes.
And that would also lead us to talking about the youth. Now, how can we develop that sector?
Well,
and benefit from the Singaporean experience.
Yes, of course. As probably some of our viewers might know, there are approximately 300 Singaporean students studying in Egypt currently. I think it makes pretty much sense to create some scholarships for Egyptian youth to go and study in Singapore as well. Of course, you need to live in a certain country in order to really learn how it functions. You know, it's not just a matter of going there for a quick visit for 2-3 weeks or something, or for a training. No, I think you need to spend more time in a country in order to really know how it works and how it functions. So I think if we can start by creating scholarships and between Singapore and Egypt, this is definitely a good step. The second step is, of course, to create an attractive investment environment for those small and medium enterprises from Singapore to come to Egypt and invest in Egypt, and not only for the large multinational companies, because I think, for example, I'll just give you the example of the economy of Germany, for example, which is the strongest economy in the European community, in the European Union, is actually based on the small and medium enterprises. It's not based on the big companies. So I think it's very important that, especially here in Egypt, we have lots of sectors which are still untapped, more or less, and where there is a huge potential. Like, for example, the handcraft sector, for example, and we really need to focus more on those small and medium-sized enterprises in Egypt, because they will create lots of job opportunities, and the unemployment rate will definitely go down very quickly. And most important, we need to...
But what do you think are the main challenges facing the small and medium enterprises in Egypt? We've been talking about them for a while, and we are not seeing actual development in this field.
Well, actually, President Sisi, he talked about this issue, because he said that our community and our society and our culture always wants that the son or the daughter goes to the university and gets a university degree. The problem is that we lack the medium educational system, which is the dual educational system, where for example a 16-year-old starts working and getting a training in a factory, aside to getting to learn the, for example, I'll give you an example, the mechatronic, for example. If you want a really good mechanic, he should study something called mechatronics. If I'm not mistaken, we are not very much concentrating on mechatronics. Most of the people we have, the engineers, they go, for example, to the Faculty of Engineering at Cairo University or any other university. So we have good engineers, but we don't have good technicians. Right. So this is why for example, lots of car owners, they suffer from the mechanics in the small workshops, because they really they work on the trial and error basis. You know, they don't really have a fundamental education on how the mechatronics is the words between mechanical and electronics. So so you need, of course, all the modern cars, for example, they have both. Yes, exactly. They all the mechanical parts are now controlled in an electronic way. So you need to have studied mechatronics, and unfortunately, probably 99% of the mechanics we have working in the small workshop, they really have not really went to any educational system. They just learned it by experience when they were young, and this is where we're failing, actually. And I think this is the most important thing, which President Sisi mentioned, that we need to change the mindset of the people, and that people should send their sons to get some technical training or technical education, instead of sending them to only university education.
Well, another issue which was tackled between President Sisi and President Tan was cooperation in terms of energy and energy markets. Would you tell us how can we do that or achieve such a thing?
Well, actually, you know, the environment of Egypt is one of the best and one of the most convenient for producing renewable energy sources, actually, and I think we are really missing out on this. Every industrial nation is focusing now on renewable energy sources, and we have all the circumstances, the best circumstances actually for this, and we're not making use out of it. So it's very important that we get good technology, we get modern technology at a reasonable price. So of course, as you might know, Singapore has one of the highest living standards actually worldwide. It's one of the most expensive countries to live in. So actually, it might not be. We might not get technology for a good price from there, like we would, for example, get from China. But nevertheless, it might be less expensive than such a technology if we would get it, for example, from Germany or for France, for example. So this is one point where we could cooperate with them, and of course, it's a very developed country, and of course, Singapore also has invested lots in renewable energies as well, and we should really focus more on not only on the renewable energy sector, but also on many other different sectors. For example, you know, Singapore is called, for example, the fine city. Not fine as in good, not fine like in fines. Like if you do something wrong, you have to pay a fine. You know, so they have a legal system which respects the tradition and the culture. Yet it is very, very strict. For example, there was a time you were not allowed to eat chewing gum, for example. Chewing gums were banned in Singapore because actually they people to throw the chewing gums on the road and make them dirty. So this is, for example, one thing. Another thing is if you throw anything on the road or on the street, you would pay like up to 3,000 Singaporean dollars. So that's a huge fine as well. And they have many different other legal rules, which I think we can really learn from.
And the Singaporean people are actually very disciplined, and they follow the rules actually.
Yes, because actually they have something like a zero tolerance policy in Singapore, especially when it comes to for example, drugs problems or drugs dealers, for example. They are very, very strict in this, and I think we should really look on how they are using that, because I think we could also use some of those strict rules in Egypt as well to really get some discipline on the roads and on the streets of Egypt as well.
Well, indeed, Mr. Mohamed Sheta, economic and political expert, we hope that we benefit from the Singaporean experience. Thank you very much for this.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. And dear viewers, we now go to this short break and we'll be right back.